So, Watchmen, everyone, it turns 10 years old this day in time. March 6th of 2009 was when it first came out. So 10 years old, this film came out. And Watchmen is a film that it's interesting to talk about, I find at least. And so that's why I'm going to talk about it. So let me start with the premise for those of you that don't know. So the premise is that in 1985, it's an alternate timeline where superheroes are accepted. But the thing is, certain events have taken place where they've had to go into hiding. The Incredibles esque, except Watchmen, the comic book, came out years before Alan Moore's comic books came out years before the Incredibles. So that's why I get a pass. I give it a pass. But superheroes aren't accepted in 1985. That being said, Rorschach is still on the loose. He is like a Batman-esque figure played by Jackie Earle Haley, who's a brilliant actor. And Rorschach is going after the comedian's assaultant. So essentially, the comedian gets killed early in the film, and Rorschach must look in and see who was, in fact, the one that killed the comedian. Because an attack on one is an attack on all, as he put it. So this is a film noir, essentially, a neo-noir to be specific. It's a neo-noir superhero movie. Now, you can argue that the Dark Knight trilogy is a superhero noir franchise, and I wouldn't disagree. That being said, I feel like Watchmen is the quintessential superhero noir film because every single frame of this film, you could just snap it and just frame it. It's brilliant. Not only that, I have to say that I think the acting across the board is brilliant. I mean, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, this is before he made it big with, obviously Negan and The Walking Dead, and he's great as the comedian. Jackie Earle Haley, as I already mentioned, as Rorschach, is incredible. I love Jackie Earle Haley. I think he is a great actor. He's incredible in Little Children, but he's specifically incredible in Watchmen. Patrick Wilson, I've always liked him. His performance as Dan, I liked personally. Carla Gugino as Sally was great. Billy Crudup as Dr. Manhattan. Matthew Goody as Adrian. They're all really good. Like, this is an ensemble cast where they all give it their all, except one. I'll get into that with the negatives, but for now, I just want to say the cast is great. It's an extremely well shot film. And on top of that, the score is brilliant because what they do is they mix an actual score with the soundtrack. And yes, one might say that all these soundtrack beats we've heard before in other films, specifically during this time period, but I think that it works. And I think that Zack Snyder, the director, does such a great job with blending these imagery with these score and soundtrack beats. It works perfectly. The sound design is also, my goodness, especially on Blu-ray, it's outstanding. I mean, I'll never forget the first time I saw this film. I wasn't the biggest fan of it the first time. In fact, I felt very mixed about it, very polarizing. There was part of me that loved it and the other part of me that hated it. And I'll get into that towards the end of my review, but let me just say this. Right from the get-go, the first time I saw this film, I recognized the sound design and how it's just mind-blowing, quite simply. I think it's incredible. Simply put, incredible. The craftsmanship, I'm just surprised it didn't get nominated for an Oscar, at least for sound mixing. It's just incredible. The bone crunches, the way they blend the score and the soundtrack into all the hits and punches and bruises and the dialogue, it's just incredible, I think. I also think the mystery is very compelling because it's interesting. You'll see these characters as they go about their routine and everything and how they go about their life, and then you see Rorschach going about his daily routine. It's just a juxtaposition of each other because it's just so different. It deals with a lot of messages about how some people aren't willing to go and change and other people are. And it's just, I find it interesting. I also loved the ending. I think the ending definitely is incredible. Because let me just put it this way. You could easily say it's kind of a riff on the Dark Knight's ending, and I wouldn't disagree. But at the same time, I feel as though with it being so somber and so ecstatic at the same time and not falling into the tropes of the superhero genre, I give it props. It's very ballsy for that because so oftentimes in superhero movies you have build up in the first act and then more build up in the second act and a lot of quips and funny lines. But Watchmen's dead serious. It's one of the most serious films I've ever seen, so it gets check marks for that. And for the fact that the final act isn't an all-out war, all-out explosions and things like that. I mean, there is something big that happens, but there's not a 30-minute, rock and sock 'em, punch him out fight, which I liked as well. Watchmen is, in my opinion, it's the film that as fans of superhero movies, they'll watch all these Marvel movies and realize, okay, it's schlock. It's for the masses. But then as they get older, they'll watch Watchmen and they'll be like, oh, wow, so this is how you can make an adult superhero movie. And I give it props. It's very ballsy for that. Because I'll be honest, when I watched Watchmen as a teenager, I was like, again, like I was saying earlier, I felt very mixed about it because part of me was like, I don't know, there's not enough action. As I've grown older, I've just kind of realized that, yes, it doesn't have as much action as other superhero movies, but does a film need a lot of action to qualify as a great movie? No. Yes, it may have been advertised as an action film, but I think that at the heart of it, if you give Watchmen a shot, you'll realize that this is one of the best noir films out there. Neo-noir, I should say. It's just a film that blends all these different genres seamlessly. It's science fiction, it's noir, it's superhero, it's mystery, and it does a great job. And yes, I do own the director's cut, and that's the only version I've seen. So, as you probably have guessed, the length isn't an issue for me. In fact, I like how it's 3 hours long because every single scene just oozes out with all this authenticity of just organic filmmaking. And it's just great because, yes, there are some scenes that feel as though it's almost cramming too much into one scene, but it makes for interesting rewatchability because as you're rewatching, you're picking up all these little details. And I'm going to say something at the very end of this review about that because there is an adaptation of Watchmen that's coming out by HBO, and I'm going to get to that at the end of the review. What I'm going to say this, though, if you haven't picked up on it by now, I love Watchmen. I think it's a great, great film. I think it's well shot. It sounds great. The story for me was very compelling and very engaging. It's well directed. This is Zack Snyder's best film, obviously. And this is a film that it's aged well for 10 years. I think it's visually outstanding with all the shots that it compels and just puts together. It's great. I would say the only gripe I have, and it's not even a gripe because I know a lot of people that don't like this, but me personally, I was fine with it. That's Malin Ackerman's performance. She plays Laurie Jupiter in this film. I don't mind her performance, but I can understand why some people might not like her performance. I don't know what to say. It could be her acting. It could be that it's not the best. But I personally was able to accept it because, again, it's an ensemble cast and all the other performances are fantastic. So it's a grain of salt and an otherwise, for me personally, fantastic film that is one of my favorite superhero movies. It's easily my top 5. Actually, top 3, I'd go ahead and say. So for me, Watchmen, it goes without saying. Watchmen is a 5 out of 5 star movie for me. Or, if it was like a hot sauce rating, I know, it gets the good old ghost pepper rating. Very rarely do I give out this rating, but Watchmen, it gets this rating, and it deserves it. So, obviously I loved it, as I've already mentioned like 1,000 times now, but it's being adapted by HBO. I am fine with that, because as much as I love the movie, I can understand why someone would want to add their own twist to the story, because again, it's a 3-hour movie. And HBO is doing 10 episodes. So I think the content's there. I've heard that the comic book is very, very dense. So it makes sense because, again, like I mentioned earlier, there are some scenes where it just condenses so much plot and story into a couple scenes that it's like, holy cow, this is a lot. But you can flesh it out with a TV show. So I'm fine with it. And it's HBO. Best studio that does TV shows. So I'm completely fine with that. But guys, there you have it. This is probably the most positive I've talked about a superhero movie on my channel. And that is because, as I've already mentioned, this is no ordinary superhero movie. So that being said, guys, let me know your thoughts. What did you think of Watchmen? Is it the crowd-pleasing, Marvel-esque movie that you thought you were going to get and you didn't because you realized that it's a down-to-earth film and it's ballsy? Or is it the, down-to-earth film that you were able to accept and love? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And guys, as always, thank you very much for watching. And don't forget subscription, notification bell, and I'll catch you guys later.